This is currently our everyday utility drawer, and as you can see, it is a mess. It's time to figure out a solution for this. And if you haven't yet, click the subscribe button. Thanks. My wife has been super patient with me. She's been waiting for this project for a while. I finally got to it, and she's super happy about it. For this project, I'm using this piece of walnut veneer plywood that I had laying around. It's been there for quite some time, so I wanted to get rid of it, and I felt like this project was perfect for that. The first thing I did was cut the plywood into 2.5-inch strips. The height of the drawer is actually 3 inches, but I want the organizer to sit right below that. And I ended up needing 3 strips. Now I'll go ahead and cut the strips down to the appropriate lengths, which is 18 inches for the width and then 16.5 for the length. And I'll also cut the dividers for the compartments as well. I'll be using the combination of rabbits and dados to make this organizer. The exterior box will be connected with the rabbits, and then the interior compartments will be connected with the dado joints. What I like to do is I like to make a test piece to make sure that the dado that I'm cutting will fit the actual material that I'm using. The manufacturer usually has a chart that you can follow. I just find that those charts aren't always accurate. I usually just go ahead and make the test cut, and if the test cut fits, then I'll go ahead and run the final cuts. My wife wanted this organizer to store the different Ziplocs that she uses, as well as some of our everyday items like keys, wallets, phones. So I'm going to make sure that I'm dividing up the spaces for the compartments so that it will fit these items. The biggest item that we're putting in there is a 1-gallon size Ziploc bag, and I have to make sure that that's going to fit. If that fits, then everything else will fit. Once I got the dados all cut out, I went ahead and did a dry assembly. I usually like to do a dry assembly just to make sure that I have all of the pieces cut to the right length. And if it's not fitting correctly, then I'll go back and maybe trim that piece or remake that piece. Also, I wanted to make sure that the dados lined up, and once I had them lined up, I'll mark the edge with a pencil. That way I'll know that edge needs to be glued on the same side. Then I'll check to make sure that the compartments are nice and square before I finally glue it up. But before gluing, I went ahead and sanded everything down with 180 grit sandpaper. I'm using 180 grit because I wanted to make sure that I'm not going to sand too much into the veneer. If I sand too much, then it'll expose the plywood layers underneath. I didn't want any squeeze out in these corners, so I only applied just enough glue to hold the joint together. If you're going to make a lot of boxes, I highly recommend you invest in a good set of corner clamps. They're really great at keeping the corners nice and tight and keeping them squared. Once the outer frame was dried, I went ahead and glued the inner compartments into the correct location. And again, I made sure that my markings were all on the right side so that the dados would line up. Once I got everything into the correct location, I went ahead and just used some clamps to apply a little bit of pressure and wait for everything to dry. There are two compartments at the bottom of the organizer. One of them will be for our aluminum foil, and the other one will be for our phones or wallets and anything that's smaller. If we need to move the aluminum foil to a different location in the kitchen later on, then the dados are already cut into place so that I can go ahead and divide that and use it for something else later on in the future. Once I got everything dried, I went ahead and sanded down the face and all the sides with 180 grit sandpaper. After what seemed to be like 100 layers of spray lacquer because this plywood just soaked it all up, I can finally call this project done. So once the project was completed, I realized that I had the width and the length of the organizer dimensions swapped. So there's one compartment that is all the way in the back, and we now use it as a hidden area for our personal items because it's really hard to get to. And it turned out we only had 4 different size Ziploc bags, so everything worked out in the end. It's a lesson of making sure you measure twice before you cut. And so my wife really loves this organizer, and I do as well. I think it's nice to be able to find my keys where it needs to be and not have to dig through all that junk. It's a nice little addition that I didn't think would matter, but now that I have it, it makes so much sense to make sure everything is nice and organized within these drawers because, as you guys know, things can get really messy really quick inside these drawers. So I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Hope that you could take this same project and apply it to your kitchen. Until next time, this has been Bao with Design Craft Workshop. See ya. And thanks for watching. If you did like the video, hit that like button and definitely subscribe. Thanks.